10 safest places when World War III starts. Number 10. Albania. Where better to hide from war than in a country where the streets are literally paved with bunkers? That's the case in Albania thanks to Enver Hoxha. Despite all the faults of the communist dictator, including labour camps and Stalin-esque purges, his paranoia led him to build a potentially life-saving range of shelters across the country. Built to protect the public from suspected Soviet attacks, or perhaps just to inspire fear in the populace, there are over 700,000. That's one bunker for every 4 Albanians. Hoxha initiated the widespread creation of the structures after ordering the original engineer to stand in one of them while a tank fired at it. It's not a stretch to say that Hoxha was a little unhinged. Most are simple pillar boxes that will protect people from artillery, but there are a series of larger underground nuclear shelters for the military elite, making Albania the second most tunnelled country in the world after North Korea. The bunkers have a proven track record too, having been used by townspeople during the 1997 Civil War and in border villages during the 1999 Kosovo conflict. Not to spoil the party, but there is one tiny problem with hiding out in Albania. It's kind of the filling in an apocalyptic sandwich, since it's slap bang in the middle of NATO allies and Russian powers. And, well, those guys don't tend to get along. But hey, at least there are lots of lovely bunkers. Number 9. South Dakota. Midwest America doesn't exactly scream safe zone in a World War situation, but you might be surprised at what you'll find there. For a price, that is. A company called Vivos has created what it calls the world's largest underground survival community, named X-Point, referring to the time when the world is about to end. X-Point is the result of a growing culture of survivalism in the States. Often derided for being paranoid, these people believe that the best way to survive a worldwide catastrophe is to be prepared for the worst, from World War III to a zombie apocalypse. According to the company, for a measly $25,000, you can take out a lease on one of the 575 shelters at the site until the 3rd of October 2115 to ride out the war in style. They can withstand a 500,000-pound blast, are complete with fully self-sufficient water facilities, and even have on-site security from military-trained guards. But from there, it's on you, so you're going to have to pay if you want the basic luxuries like, well, everything. Even the basics, come to think of it. The bunker camp was made from a repurposed military ammunition base and is at least 160 kilometers away from any known target in the United States. So in theory, you should be pretty safe, if not in medium to serious debt. And hey, if the day never comes, at least you have a bunker to make your Fallout cosplay look cool. Number 8. Tierra del Fuego. If World War III really did happen, and it might not be that wild a prediction, nuclear annihilation has to be at the top of everyone's fears. So Tierra del Fuego could be the place to head if you're worried about radioactivity, as a study by an editor of the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists claimed that it would be the last place to be affected by nuclear fallout. That's because it just happens to be the furthest point from any nuclear state, and what's more, it's home to peculiarly strong winds, up to a blistering 100 kilometers per hour. That means that even if fallout did reach the so-called land of fire, the radioactive particles would likely not cause much of a problem. And if you like some ironic double meanings with your facts, many places in Tierra del Fuego are named after the end of the world because its location is so far south that it's basically the end of the earth. Number 7. Greenland. One way to avoid annihilation is to head somewhere that isn't just virtually impossible to find on the map, but also somewhere that very few people would care to look. Who says hide and seek is just for kids? If that sounds like a good idea to you, then Greenland has just the place, but you probably can't pronounce it. The remote fishing village of Hittekortormiite can be found at the furthest edge of the snowy Danish territory, accessible mostly by snowmobile or dog sled. It has a tiny population of just 452 and zero military significance. Even if someone was hell-bent on invading, they'd have a pain of a time getting there, as it's blocked off by sea ice for as many as 9 months of the year. And on top of that, you'd be virtually immune to resource wars, since the majority of the town's food supply comes from local hunting. But while military assaults are of no concern there, you'd better watch out for polar bears. Thanks to global warming, they've been migrating closer and closer to the town in recent years. Still, it's better than being blown up. Number 6. Australia. Good old Oz probably isn't high on a lot of people's priority lists for safe havens during a war, given its involvement in everything from World War I to the War on Terror. But there's a boatload of reasons to lay back and crack open a tinny while the world gets on with it. For one thing, you're never going to run out of food, as it's one of the world's major exporters and sends out enough food to feed 76 million people annually. In other words, a country the size of Germany. That gives the country a good amount of security from potential adversaries in Asia, as countries like China have become increasingly reliant on Aussie produce to feed its growing population. And if nukes are a worry, rest easy knowing that the distance from other continents means that, outside of a direct strike, nuclear fallout would likely have no more effect than smoking on death rates. And even if someone managed to defeat the Australian, British and US navies to get there, the vast outback provides excellent protection and it's a mammoth task to take it. Oh, and there are these guys to contend with. Number 5. Antarctica. This one's just if you're really desperate, or maybe if you just don't care whether you can feel your face. Either way, no war is likely ever going to affect you on Antarctica. That's because of the Antarctic Treaty, meaning that all military activity is banned from the continent in order to allow scientists to work without the threat of guns from all sides. The unusual deal was signed in 1959 by the USA, USSR and 10 other countries to establish that no country had claim on the territory. It was hoped that it would foster better East-West relations over time, but that didn't work out so well. And even if someone did decide to break the treaty, they'd have a hell of a time trying to traverse the hostile Antarctic climate, where temperatures can drop as low as -89 degrees Celsius. Just make sure you bring your supplies, as it's basically impossible to get food once you're there. And you better have a backup plan for a protracted war, as people have only ever stayed in the snowy wastes of Antarctica for around 2 years at a time tops. Number 4. Switzerland. We all know that no one avoids unnecessary conflict better than the Swiss. So it would make sense to flock to the most famously neutral country in the world. In fact, Switzerland hasn't engaged in a major conflict for over 2 centuries. But what you might not know is that Switzerland is also super badass. In fact, every Swiss male under 50 is a reserve soldier. Have fun getting through them, since they're all required to keep an assault rifle or pistols at home. And when fighting doesn't work, Switzerland is uniquely prepared to protect its citizens, with enough bunkers to house all 8 million citizens of the country. Built to protect from Axis attacks in World War II and later fortified to withstand Soviet assaults, the 300,000 shelters have been there to ensure Swiss safety for decades, even though no one knew about them until the 90s. Oh, and you can always chow down on some tasty Swiss chocolate while you're hiding out. Number 3. Raven Rock. Despite sounding like Edgar Allan Poe's holiday spot, Raven Rock is one of the most confidential and secure locations in the United States. Its full name is the Raven Rock Mountain Complex, aka Site R, and the facility is designed to be the underground Pentagon in case of a widespread nuclear attack. Initially completed in 1953, the Pennsylvania complex can hold 3,000 people in its underground city-like structure, and was even used by Dick Cheney after 9/11. And it's fully kitted out for long-term living, complete with power plants, reservoirs, a gym, and even a snack bar if you feel like treating yourself for escaping the apocalypse. But as a relic of the Cold War, it might not hold up too well against a modern thermonuclear strike. Even so, Site R is still likely the go-to base of US operations in the case of a major war, so it's pretty damn safe. Oh, and if you needed any further proof that Raven Rock means business, it's the Enclave's base of operations in Fallout 3, so yeah. Number 2. Pindar. How can you destroy somewhere that doesn't exist? Well, that's what the British government is thinking. Buried beneath London's District Line, you'll find the Defence Crisis Management Centre, codenamed Pindar. The £120 million secret bunker was built to protect the military, high-ranking politicians, and possibly the Queen if needs be. Completed in the 1980s, this structure can withstand everything from military assaults to nuclear warfare, and even electromagnetic pulses, massive electric shocks that can knock your electronics out cold. Despite the extreme secrecy around the venue, a rare photo shoot revealed that it's where operations would be handled in the case of a catastrophic attack on London. There's even a full television studio built in, probably just for public service broadcasts, although it might be fun making your own TV shows if you get bored. And if that wasn't enough, it's rumoured to be used by Cobra, Britain's top secret security task force that handles everything from social unrest to terrorism. And you can't stay safer than that, unless you're talking about number 1. Number 1. Mount Yamantau and Kozvinsky. Rule number 1 of future world wars? Prepare to get nuked. And seeing as they have more nukes than any other country on Earth, it's fair to say that Russia is likely to get in on the action. But it just so happens that one of the safest places to ride out the storm might be in the belly of the beast, which just happens to be a set of obscure Russian mountainside fortresses. Built into the Ural and Kozvinsky mountain ranges, this project, undertaken by the Cold War-era Soviet government, was designed to shield high-level government officials in the event of a nuclear attack. But the Russian government has been extremely secretive about the facility's operations, only saying that it was in the interest of national security. Though according to Bruce Blair, the late head of the Centre of Defence Information, they're even capable of semi-automatic missile launches. This is all getting a bit Dr. Strangelove. The project wasn't finished until well into the 90s, But the fact that the construction carried on after the Cold War ended made the Clinton administration extremely nervous. With any luck, it'll never be needed, but in the case of a major attack, Putin has most definitely got it covered. That was the 10 safest places when World War III starts. Where would you stay? Let us know in the comments below, and make sure you like and subscribe while you're at it. And for more tense content, check out the video playing on screen now.